Welcome to Voice of America studio in Washington. I am Sara Zaman, here with you with a special presentation. Pakistan is a country of young people. Nearly half of its population is less than 24 years old. And the leader of one of Pakistan's biggest political parties, the Pakistan People's Party, is Bhlavel Bhutto Zardari, who is not much older than half of Pakistan's population. Yet he is the youngest political head of any party in Pakistan right now. Today, I have him in my studio as my guest. How does he think Pakistan and his party should deal with the challenges they face? That is what we are going to talk to him about. Bhlavel Bhutto Zardari, welcome to Voice of America.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I also want to let you know, and our viewers know, that this is also a Facebook Live event. We will try to take some questions from our live audience.
Great.
And we will incorporate those, but I have a whole list of questions and topics that I want to touch upon with you. First thing I want to know is, a couple of years ago, you gave an interview in which you said that growing up, you never thought that you would be in politics and that you don't think that you have the life that a 20-year-old would aspire to have. What has changed in your outlook, if anything, in the last couple of years regarding your presence in politics and pursuing this as a career?
I think with as time has gone by, I've increased my drive and my passion to work ever more to bring my mother's vision for a peaceful, prosperous, progressive, democratic Pakistan into a reality. We face a whole host of challenges in Pakistan, as you know, from Islamic extremism to issues in our neighborhood, to economic challenges, to demographic challenges, to a lack of investment in our education and healthcare sectors. As a young person, those are exactly the sort of areas in which I believe we should be focusing our energies and try to contribute in whichever way we can to bettering our society.
Mm-hmm. Now, you are a young leader and you have your own fresh perspective on issues. You're the leader who has to talk to people through Facebook Live, through Twitter, things that your predecessors didn't really have to do. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of expectations in terms of what are you going to do differently. Now, the issue is that you are surrounded by the party's old guard. There are people who have been in this field for a long, long time. How do you plan, or how do you foresee that you can build your political career and the party's future in a different way, different from what the party stalwarts have done in the last 30 years?
Well, I think there's a lot to learn from our past, and it's certainly an inspirational legacy. And we're very proud of our struggle for democracy in Pakistan, of being a consistent force and voice and at the forefront of Pakistan's democratic struggle. Having said that, now that we have established democracy, we've had our first peaceful transfer of power, the people expect more from the Pakistan People's Party, and the challenge for the Pakistan People's Party is that in a democratic setup, now what do you offer the people of Pakistan? And I believe that the Pakistan People's Party offers a progressive vision, an alternative vision for the Muslim youth of Pakistan that is one based on equality despite religion, caste, creeds, or sex, and that's the way forward for both myself and the Pakistan People's Party.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Bhutto name, it's a big name in Pakistani politics, and it's a well-known name around the world. For you, does it ever feel that the Bhutto name is maybe a little bit of a burden, a little bit of liability for you, because there's so much comparison between your mother and you, your grandfather and you? There are a lot of expectations attached to this name.
Of course, there are a lot of expectations attached with this name, and my mother and grandfather have set incredibly high bars, but I am very proud of my name as it associates me with my mother and her struggle. And as you know, I go by my full name of Bhlavel Bhutto Zardari, and I don't believe in any way, shape or form that it's a burden. If anything at all, it is something to work towards. I hold ourselves to new standards for a new time and new challenges, of course, and hope to meet those challenges to the best of my ability. I understand that we lost them before their time. And that has had an impact on my life and on the Pakistan People's Party, but not for a moment am I hesitant in saying that it's a matter of pride to be a Bhutto.
How is your political philosophy different from, say, your mother's or your grandfather's, just because you're living in different times?
That's a very interesting question. I haven't given much thought to how our political approaches would be different. In one way, I think, as you said, as social media brings one directly in touch with a population, and I think we're in a far more responsive time. In their generations, you didn't have 24-hour news. You didn't have this modern technology that has really increased the pace of everyday life and politics in the country. So one has to be more responsive. Another way that we're different, unfortunately, is the security paradigm in Pakistan has changed. And given the way that we lost my mother, my freedom to campaign, I don't get an equal playing field as the other political parties, as the Pakistan People's Party is singled out by terrorist and extremist groups, while the more conservative parties are not. So in those ways, I would say it's different, but it's challenging.
MQM and ANP have also had to deal with the challenges that you're talking about in terms of not getting a level playing field, especially during election season last time.
Absolutely. They don't have to campaign nationally, but of course, on their provincial and the city of Karachi, they too have faced challenges. Of course, Altaf Hussain never campaigned himself, so he didn't face the same.
In terms of, I know you said that, you're living in different times, so the political philosophy would somewhat be different. One thing that when we look at People's Party's years, and especially when we focus on your mother and your father's politics, your mother once said that there are no permanent enemies and no permanent friends in politics. Reconciliation is part of the narrative. Do you value reconciliation, or do you feel that if there are other parties that are in opposition to you, or you're in opposition, sitting in opposition, then the role is to oppose?
I think that it's obviously very important, particularly when the other party is in government, to hold them to account, and that is the role of the opposition. At the same time, I genuinely believe, not only as political parties, as Muslims, but as countries, we really need to start looking to find common ground and similarities, and find things that we can work together on and what we agree on, because that's the only way we'll be able to actually practically achieve something. But that requires a lot of initiative, a lot of leadership, and I hope to be able to live up to such a challenge.
Now, in Pakistan, democracy is still, in its nascent stages, it's strengthening itself. How do you see the role of a party that's sitting in opposition, whether today or in the future? How should a party balance its responsibility of being in the opposition and holding the government accountable, but also strengthening this process so anti-democratic forces don't find space?
Well, absolutely, the opposition party has to hold the government to the account, but the onus is also on the government to give democracy its due respect. And that is really something that this government has frankly not done. They've used the electoral process and the word democracy to come to power, but then have not followed through. If the Prime Minister does not attend Parliament, then how can he pretend to be a champion of democracy? If his ministers don't attend to answer questions, then people will lose faith in the very democracy the rest of us have sacrificed so much to achieve.
Balawl, we'll keep talking to you. We are now going to take a very brief break. This is a Facebook Live event as well, and we'll take a short break over there too, but we'll come back momentarily with more questions. Welcome back. We have Mr. Balawl Bhutto Zerdari in Voice of America's Washington studio today. We're having a very lively discussion with him about Pakistan and about Pakistan People's Party. Balawl, I also want to talk to you about the relationship between Pakistan and the US. I want to read to you a tweet that Donald Trump, currently the president, but at that time he wasn't, in 2012 he wrote, "Get it straight, Pakistan is not our friend. We have given them billions and billions of dollars, and what did we get? Betrayal and disrespect, and much worse. Hashtag time to get tough." Right now, the list of 7 countries that we have seen that whose citizens have a travel ban imposed on them does not include Pakistan. What should Pakistan's reaction be if its name in the coming days or weeks lands up on that list? Because there are politicians and policymakers who are asking, why isn't Pakistan on this list? How should Pakistan respond if it gets on that list?
Again, this is a theoretical question is we're not on the list, and therefore I'd like to not comment until such a hopefully incident does not arise. Having said that, I would say that it is a very a matter of concern. It causes anxiety amongst the Muslim community, and one feels like they're being singled out on the basis of religion, which is not only unfair, it's very un-American. But it's the American borders, and they can do what they like, right, in dealing with their borders. But it's very encouraging to see that the people of America have come out in support of Muslim communities, and at the same time, one has to really question that while one can be critical of the way America is dealing with refugees or immigration, what is the Muslim world doing? Have we opened our doors to the refugees, to those displaced by chaos in the Muslim world? And I don't think that we've been carrying our weight. Pakistan hosts a whole host of Afghan refugees for the past 30 years, but I think we're lacking. The Muslim leadership is also lacking over here.
We have seen that Iran has retaliated and said that it's not going to issue visas and not going to allow entry of American citizens. If something like this were to happen, and I understand that you're saying it's a hypothetical question, but because there is more noise being made over here about why Pakistan isn't on that list, should Pakistan retaliate?
I don't see how it makes sense for Pakistan to be on that list. America's been working, Pakistan's been working on our relationships, and of course there have been issues, but you're opening one of the biggest, America's opening one of their biggest embassies in the world in Afghanistan, and this would send a very negative message that one did not want to continue with such a relationship, and it would only serve as counterproductive and to undermine US strategic aims in the regions. You want to encourage Pakistan to be a neighbor, not to antagonize it to where it will be less helpful.
But there are people within this city, within the corridors of power, who say Osama bin Laden was found in Pakistan. The Haqqani network has not been dealt with the way America would like. Lashkar-e-Taiba is another issue. India also raises that. So when there are these realities that are present on the ground, do you think it's strange for people in America to wonder why Pakistan is not on that list?
I don't think many people in America are worried about whether Pakistan's on the list or not. I think a lot of people in America are worried that the list exists at all. Having said that, I don't see how the poor students coming here for an education to learn about the American way of life and would take away a better message, how they're to blame for the mistakes of others. It is really unfair. We don't believe in collective punishment or punishing an entire religion or entire country for the actions of a few. And I really just hope that this is not the way things will continue.
Do you feel anything needs to be differently in terms of Pakistan and US relations? Because they're far from being perfect. There are some times when they're on an upward trajectory, sometimes they go through very dark periods. Is there something that PPP, and especially you as the chairman of Pakistan People's Party, think needs to be done differently now?
We really need to start looking at each other as true partners and friends if we want to get things done across the board. We narrowly focus on singular issues or short-term aims undermines such a relationship, and also resorting to threats and back and forth, that isn't helpful for any relationship. So I do hope that Pakistan and the United States can broaden the scope and look at what we have that's similar rather than what drives us apart.
Are you worried about the Trump administration taking any measures in terms of its policy with Pakistan that could be drastically different from what previous administrations have done? Any challenges you particularly worry about?
No, I do hope that the incoming Trump administrations get properly briefed about what's going on and hear from all sides, and then takes reasonable, responsible decisions, and not short-term emotional actions that are really cutting your nose to spite your face.
Now, religious extremism is an issue that has, of course, affected your life in Pakistan, affected actually everybody's life in Pakistan. The security situation over time, the changes we see in it, a large part of it is because of religious extremism. In Pakistan, religion is a very important part of life. It's just integral to the national narrative, and it's intertwined with politics as well. Do you think that in a country where politics and religion are mingled all the time, in that environment, it is going to be possible to get away from a narrative that includes religious extremism? Can people do away with that when it's constantly intermingled in every sphere of life, especially politics?
Well, as far as politics, I think that religion is a beautiful thing, and Islam is a beautiful, peaceful religion, and politics is a dirty, dirty, filthy game. And it is my belief that the two should not be mixed. And those that exploit religion for politics or business do a disservice to our country and to the religion. As far as tackling extremism, I believe as long as we don't confuse Islam with terrorism. We've seen just yesterday the horrific terrorist attack on the Muslim community in Canada. So it's not just, we have to understand that this is something that happens across the board. It is not one religion that does this, and we really need to stop this impression or this fear-mongering against one particular religion.
Mm-hmm. You said that politics is a dirty, dirty game, and there are a lot of people, I think, who would agree with you. There is frustration among people in Pakistan with their politicians. Mm. As a young leader, what do you think needs to be done to overcome that frustration, to actually build a bridge between your voters and between the party, not just in terms of, let's say, starting a couple of more development projects, criticizing the sitting government on a couple of issues? How can the political class of Pakistan, not just you as an individual, what can the political class in Pakistan do to reduce the frustration of voters?
I think that you're absolutely right. And there seems to be a disconnect internationally between the political class and the voting public. Here in America, the recent election cycle showed that. In Britain, with their recent referendum, and you're right, whether they might not be manifested in Pakistan, there's a general sense that there's a disconnect between what the politicians talk about and what the people want. We're not talking about jobs, we're not talking about education, we're not talking about healthcare. As you said, we're talking about what the media wants you to talk about or what brings you ratings, or we're abusing each other. And that is going to continue to frustrate the people of Pakistan, and that's something that really needs to be overcome.
In terms of the role of the media, right now, all politicians are on, their fair game as far as Pakistan's media is concerned. You are criticized for the fact that you haven't lived a large part of your life in Pakistan. You're criticized for not being as fluent in Urdu as, let's say, other veteran politicians are. Does this type of criticism bother you? Oh,
not at all. It's something I watched my mother being criticized for not speaking Urdu fluently enough. And I know that I didn't choose this life. I didn't choose to be outside Pakistan during the dictatorship. My mother was forced into exile. So these things don't bother me. And if the biggest criticism they have about me is my pronunciation, then I think I'm doing particularly well, because I can think of far more criticism of my opponents than that.
Well, we'd like to talk about what you would like to change in yourself in just a moment. We are going to take a very quick break. We would like to ask our Facebook viewers to hang around. We'll include their questions, and we will get Mr. Bلاول Bhutto Zardari's answers for the Welcome back to Voice of America studio in Washington. I'm Sara Zaman, and I have with me the chairman of Pakistan People's Party, Bلاول Bhutto Zardari. And now it's time to answer a couple of questions that we have gotten from Facebook, because this is also a Facebook Live event. There are a lot of questions that are sort of similar too, and I'll name a couple of people who have asked this question. Shahriyar Butt, Zahid Hussain, and many others have asked, why should voters give PPP another chance? What will be done differently if you come in power again?
I think the Pakistan People's Party most certainly should be given another chance, as they have been unequivocally clear on the issues that matter to the people of Pakistan. Our last government was a coalition government. And it's a different governance style, trying to bring all parties together in government, and it does affect perceptions, and it does affect popularity and the way one is perceived. I do hope that the Pakistan People's Party is given that second chance.
And Sharif Shirani and Jawad Ali Qureshi, they both have questions related to minority rights in Pakistan. One of them wants to know, is there any chance that Pakistan could have a prime minister from a minority religion? And the other question is about the withdrawal of the forced conversion bill in the Sindh Assembly.
is there any chance that Pakistan could have a minority prime minister? I believe I'm the only politician in Pakistan who has publicly called for this to be the case, and have said that I do in my lifetime wish to see this as a possibility. As you know, as the law stands today, that's not the case, and we should, if we have faith in our people of Pakistan, to elect their leaders. There should be no discrimination. We should be a country that treats all its citizens equally.
And what about the forced conversion bill that had to be reconsidered?
Yes, the governor, the federally appointed governor, did send that back to the provincial assembly to relook at. But I'm certain that they will still pass a forced conversion bill, having taken into whatever concerns they may have had. But it is, I'm very encouraged by the work in Sindh by the provincial government, particularly on women's rights and minority rights. Of course, you may have heard about the Hindu marriage bill, which which has passed recently by the Sindh Assembly and afforded equal rights to Hindu and minority citizens who didn't have their marriages recognized by the states and couldn't afford the benefits of the laws that come with that since 1947. I mean, and I think that's pretty outrageous. So it's a historical achievement. There are many others, but of course there's more to be done.
When we talk about minority rights in Pakistan, it was during the government of your grandfather that Ahmadiyas were declared infidels, and it was made part of the constitution. Do you think this is something that PPP should accept and even discuss and own openly and say, yes, this happened, and now we want to create a different legacy from that? Is this something that PPP should own up to?
I think that it is a part and parcel of the history of Pakistan, but it definitely wasn't a political party-driven initiative or a part of anyone's manifesto that should be owned in a political sense. But it is certainly something that we have to look at, right? The way all minority communities in Pakistan are being treated and the increasing level of intolerance in our society. And until we discuss our past and what has happened and where we'd like to see this country going in the future, we won't have the required clarity. But it's definitely something that really needs to be discussed.
And looking at the past, Nasibullah Khokar wants to know, how will PPP regain its position that it once had in Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's era?
To regain our position that we once had in Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's era would require a lot of effort. As you know, that the Pakistan People's Party had come under sustained attack, and my grandfather was assassinated to undermine his political clout in the country, and then my mother was targeted, hounded for her 30 years of political life, and ultimately assassinated. So the Pakistan People's Party political space in Pakistan has been whittled away at. But it's up to us now to provide that alternative narrative and take the fight to the next level and not be demoralized and understand that it's a difficult challenge. But I believe if we go out to the people and speak for their issues, we'll be given a chance.
Now, your mother was a world-renowned leader and very well respected in Washington, D.C. as well. She came into power twice but was not able to complete a term. Your father, on the other hand, was the first democratically elected government to complete its term in Pakistan. Between your two parents, who would you say is a better politician?
A better politician? That's a very interesting question, because politics is an art of the possible. And what we did in our last Pakistan People's Party government is achieve something that was thought impossible in Pakistan. It was my mother's life aim not only to have a democratic transition, but the restoration of the 1973 constitution. So I really see it as a continuation of the Pakistan People's Party's struggle, culminating in our achievements in the last government.
So do you take cues from both your parents?
Oh, absolutely. I think it makes me a lethal combination to be both my mother's son and my father's son. And they bring additional aspects of politics to the table.
And lastly, is there anything that you think you need to change about your thought process, your persona, or how you approach issues, how you approach people in Pakistan? What, if you were to engage in introspection, what would be the answer? What does Balaval Bhutto Zardari's heart say to him?
About what I need to change about the way
Do you feel the need to change, or do you feel you're on the right trajectory?
There's always room for improvement, and I'm open to hearing on how one can do better. I can promise that I'm trying to the best of my ability to live up to not only everyone's expectations, but my own high bar for what I believe the Pakistan People's Party stands for ideologically. And then I hope people would have to respond to that, and I'd have to see how that goes before I change myself.
Great. Thank you so much. I wish we had more time. We would have included even more questions from Facebook Live, but we would now have to wrap this conversation up. I would really like to thank you, Balawl Bhutto Zardari, for coming to Voice of America and for giving us a chance to not just talk to you, but also to connect you with voters in Pakistan.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was a real pleasure. Thank you.